So
let me ask the Major General to talk to us a little bit about security, because there was also a comment about the fact that maybe areas that had been devastated by some of the conflict, we didn't get the sense that the president was paying attention in trying to rebuild them, and these are some of the things that are necessary for inclusion, for people to feel that they belong. You are a security expert. If you look at what has been going on, particularly with the farmer herdsman problems, what are the specific things that the president could do in order to just try and ensure that he is being a president for those being attacked, and not perceived to be a president only for those who are doing the attacking, even if it's just a perception? So I want to be clear, I'm not suggesting that that is the case, but that perception matters. And a lot of the perception is that is what it is.
There are two issues. The first thing is the coordination of the national security is not there. There is no trust in, for instance, the police. The average Nigerian does not trust the police. And that's the first line of security in the country. So when you lack trust, there's nothing you can do. And then when you now bring in the military, somewhere along the line, you are bringing somebody who is trained, go there, shoot this guy, and go away. There's a massive difference when you're operating internally and when you're outside. When you operate internally, you cannot do those things you would do freely.
Okay, so we don't want to see the army policing, basically. That's what you're saying.
It is not every time we have an issue that the military is deployed. But it is because there is a problem, there is a shortfall. And until we finish the police security reforms, we'll continue to have this problem. The situation where you have 32 states, you have the military deployed in 32, 33 states of the Federation does not go well. We must find a way of at least either upgrading what the police have or doing something drastic about that.
Yeah, Professor Jibril, can we realistically talk about any sort of viable economic growth if we do not get the security of this country sorted?
You can. Security is so important. For example, last year, the spread of insecurity seriously affected farming, which is so dear to the president and to everybody. Simply because so many farmers couldn't go to their farms because there's so much rural insecurity, which is a totally new phenomenon in this country. We're used to urban insecurity, where it's now everywhere. I think certain strategic options need to be taken, and I agree with General. The first option is police reform. We have had 3 panels that has made elaborate recommendations for police reform in this country, and none of their recommendations has ever been implemented. You don't even need a new panel. Go to those recommendations and reform the police. And reforming the police will build trust between the people and law enforcement.
What does reforming the police entail? Maybe Dr. Joe Abba can help us with that.
It entails a holistic look at the way the institution of policing is run. And it starts from recruitment. How do you recruit people into the police? Are you getting the best people? There are a number of very able graduates roaming the streets who would actually make very good policemen. Do you have a way of vetting recruitment? Then you look at how are they trained. Is the money for training getting down to the training schools, or is it going missing somewhere?
Before we go to, do we have the funding for this? Because a bit like the conversation I want us to have about education, there are those who believe some of the things we want to do we actually can't afford, and that we need to start looking at funding models that are slightly maybe creative.
There are certain things, there are certain universal truths when it comes to governance. One is you never have enough money to do everything you want to do, and you never have enough time to do everything you want to do. So that's a given. The first thing, though, is the money, the little we have, are we using it as efficiently as we can? And is that money getting to the front line? Are we spending it on guarding VIPs when we should have people, more policemen on the streets tackling crime? Why are some policemen alleging that they are being given targets by their commissioners of police to go and retrieve monies from the streets? Some commissioners of police will tell you that, oh, in a month, only 50,000 naira actually gets to the police station from headquarters. It's very easy to do what we call a public expenditure tracking survey. That just looks at that flow of money right from headquarters to each police unit. Let's even see whether the little we have is being used effectively. Are we deploying these policemen effectively? Are we posting them in a fair and transparent manner? Are we promoting them based on merit? All of these things, and are we preparing for their exit from service? You know, a policeman in a developed country is assured of getting a good job as a security consultant when he stops being a policeman. That's not the case here. And so there are a number of things we can do, even with the little we have, before we start talking about looking at alternative funding models. Just one more example. The key reform of the police in the UK was actually funded by the insurance sector. And so it's the insurance sector wanting to make sure that people are not putting in false insurance claims, that actually equip the police to improve their investigating capacity, improve their communication capacity. Now, we're giving our policemen to banks for next to nothing. We're attaching our policemen to all sorts of businesses, and they're not paying the premium they should pay to contribute to equipping and training the police. We should do more of that.
Okay. Now, this sounds like all very great ideas, Juliet, but often when you speak to people in government who sort of been in government over a period of time, they tell you that when you get in there, the size of the problem is often much bigger than, you know, lay people like us understand, and that the rot is deep. And to be fair to President Muhammadu Buhari, when he came into office, even for his first time, he did talk about corruption fighting back. And there's a general belief that as a country, our corruption problems are so deeply seated that they're to be found at every strata. And therefore, when you kind of try to say, for example, reform the police, you're not only dealing with, say, a corrupt commissioner who's asking, you know, his people to bring in money. You're dealing with corruption virtually at every level, perhaps all the way to the top. I don't want to, you know, commit a... I don't want to get in trouble here, but you know what I'm trying to say. Now, under those sort of circumstances, where do you begin?
Okay, that's... we have systemic rot. Right? We have a dysfunctional system. That's where Nigeria is now. And everyone alludes to that, and we live it every day. So where does the intervention start from? Intervention starts from, first of all, acknowledging it. Because we've not done that. We have a situation where someone like the vice president will say, we have a great police force. They are one of the best in the, you know, on the continent. If you don't acknowledge the problem,
isn't that really because you don't want to demoralize the few that you have that are trying to get things done?
But that if you look at that, though, is the experiential part of it, what people are experiencing, is if it's different from what the government is saying, then it's that trust issue that he talks about. It further breaks down trust, right? When the president came initially, the first term, and he talked about corruption, there were people that, you know, believed that he would come in and really do things differently. The trust was high. So how do we get back to that? Because once you can build trust, then you can talk about values orientation. Okay. And so I'm
going to have to take a very, very quick break. And then when we come back, I promise I will let you finish. Yeah. And then we'll go back to the audience. Please don't go away. Welcome back. You are watching The Core, coming to you live from Channels Television Studios in Abuja, Nigeria. And we are discussing what the focus should be for President Buhari's second term in office. Now, before the break, Ms. Kego, you were talking about how trust is critical and underpins every other thing, whether it's reform, whatever it is that this government needs to do and why it is critical. Maybe you need to sort of complete that discussion.
I wanted to say that there's a couple of symbolic things that the president can do to start rebuilding trust. Number one, the whole electoral process. What we've gone through is less than, I mean, it's subpar. So the electoral reform, assenting to that, that's number one.
We do have a little, because he has sent it back. It's important to say, you know, what the up-to-date information is here. He sent it back and has asked for certain things to be done. Yeah. And so the expectation, I guess, is for the National Assembly to do the needful. Yes. If they did, I think we could get the Electoral Act before even the new National Assembly kicks in. So there's no reason, I think, technically, why this Electoral Act cannot come in the lifetime of this particular National Assembly. Yes.
Okay, so that's one thing. And then the second thing is, we talk about economy a lot, but there's also the ecological part, the social impact part about, for instance, extractive industry going from whatever 500% growth, I believe, Dr. Joe, that's the growth. All those communities that are affected, there's an impact on the environment. So there are things that need to be done. The Minister of State for Petroleum had given a date for instance, for flaring out gas, 2020. This government has to speak to that. Are we able to meet that? If not, what's the next step?
Okay.
And then the final thing I just wanted to say, in terms of symbolism, is that the president has to really show that he's anti-corruption, he's fighting it. So people that have cases to answer, whether they're governors, whether they're part of his party,
people around
him in his circle, to make that very clear.
Okay, audience, yeah, gentleman in blue, the lady here, there are 4 of you here, and then quickly we come back. I'm going to give you guys like 40 seconds each. It's literally, look at the time. We literally got to close soon.
Okay.
Yeah.
My name is George Diary. I'm a content creator and a social activist. Just 3 things I want the president to focus on. I want him to critically look at the educational sector and see how we can unbundle the system we have currently in place. Because the workload is too much. You know, you take a Nigerian, you take him abroad, he goes there, he excels, comes with a first class. But you put him here, he doesn't learn anything in the end of the day. Now I want us to look at corruption. Corruption, I think we're still suffering from the hangover of military intervention. We need to get it right. Then I want us to look at our economy in total form. Balance of payment. If we do not sort that out, we'll keep talking about improving our economy without doing the right thing.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. The gentleman there. Please, let's be quick.
My name is Abubakar Kairi. I'm a teacher. I just want to speak on the pace of the government. In his first term, Buhari exhibited some inexplicable tardiness in the way things were handled, right from the
formation. Did you say tightness or tardiness? Tardiness, right, yes. Okay.
Things were going very, very slow, including forming of his cabinet. I don't think he and we have the luxury of time. So he has to really hit the ground running.
Okay, sir.
His government was put in place. Even now.
I've got 3 minutes to the end of this program, so please. And I have a panel that I want to, yes, ma'am.
The suggestions put forth are great, but it's impossible to talk about governance or leadership without talking about the role of the electorate, engaged citizens. And states like Kaduna come to mind. There have been education reforms in Kaduna State, and if you listen to a lot of the feedback from the state, we'll wait to see what the outcome of that will be on Saturday. But how do we account for the fact that he is performing to his base and he's been returned?
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, my name is Ernest Ereke. I'm a lecturer. And for me, I think the president in the past 4 years has been a victim of power, a captive of power, so much so that the president's wife came out to tell us that certain individuals, dominated the government.
So I would want to see
a president who breaks out of that shell, perhaps, probably because he had some political IOUs to settle in the last 4 years. Now he has been given a fresh term of 4 years. He owes nobody anything. He owes himself and Nigerians, records that Nigerians can always look at and say, this is Buhari's legacy.
Okay, so in 30 seconds, my panel, starting with the Major General, your top priority for Buhari, if he's watching now, in 30 seconds.
Security, corruption by removing or reducing impunity. To fight corruption headlong will be difficult, but remove impunity by...
So the law applies to everybody equally?
Everybody.
Okay.
Everybody is equal, no specialty.
Professor Ibrahim?
We have 13 million primary school age children in northern Nigeria who are not going to school, and that links to insecurity. Work closely with state governments to get all our kids back to school.
Doctor?
We need to have a plan to address what they've both said and what Juliet will say. Number one priority is a credible, well thought out plan for moving forward.
And Juliet?
And closing out, overarching everything, human rights. We have to have rule of law because we're a democracy, and the president has to be exemplary. So if a court gives an order, he has to obey so that the rest.
And that's where you begin to talk about the impunity.
And that's where you talk about impunity, and that's where you talk about all the fault lines that we're having. Because if the president is exemplary and he's following the rule of law and communicating that to everybody on his team, then it trickles down, and then we're strengthening institutions. Because we want a president that's going to leave a legacy of strong institutions and not a strong man.
Okay. Mrs. Juliet Kego, thank you so much. Dr. Joe Abba, thank you so much for coming. Professor Jibril Ibrahim and Major General Wahab. And to the studio audience, thank you so much for coming. I do apologize that not all of you got an opportunity to speak, but unfortunately, we have run out of time. Thank you so much. Join us next month for the April edition of The Core. Until then, on behalf of Channels Television and Daria Media, I am Kadria Ahmed, wishing you a very good evening.